I miss my old man tonight, and I wish he was here with me, with his corny jokes and his cheap cigars. He could look you in the eye and sell you a car. That's not an easy thing to do, but no one ever knew a more charming creature on this earth than my old man.
I have so many memories of Joe. It's hard to know where to begin. He was always so kind, so thoughtful, so considerate, so generous with his time, and just plain old funny. He would always make you laugh. I first met Joe when I was 14, because I was 16 when Mimi and Joe got married. So I've known him a long, long time. As I said, Joe was always generous with his time. He was always the first to say, I'll pick you up at the airport. I'll take you to the airport. Come visit us in the shore. When are you going to come spend some time with us in Philadelphia? Mac and I had great times visiting them when they used to go to Florida for a month during the winter. Of course, Mac's probably most effective, I guess, memory of Joe was right before we got married, when Joe made the pronouncement that he was turning over the reins of producing grandchildren to us. John was just a year old at that time, and he was the youngest of 5. I miss Joe terribly. He was always special in my life, in our lives. All of you were very special to him, and as I know, Joe was the world to all of you. He was a one-of-a-kind, unique person. The comfort is that he is now at peace. He and Mimi are together. They're watching over all of us. Just remember how much I love you all and how special you are to me.
Hello, Minor family. I am the oldest and greatest grandchild, clearly. What many may not know is that my mom and I came into the Minor family a little later in life, and what I always have cherished is that Mimi and Pop-Up accepted us as a package immediately, and they were immediately my Mimi and Pop-Up, no questions asked, and I've really loved that always. I don't know who thought of it, but Mimi and Pop-Up for Christmas always gave the best presents of giant packs of toilet paper and paper towels, which sounds like the most lame gift ever, but it lasted us all year, and my husband and I loved it every year. But my best memory of Pop-Up is one I say all the time is long beach days with Mimi and my cousins, and there would be a time right around 4:35 when Pop-Up would show up in his straw hat and his tall white Shuby socks after a day of golfing, and he would sit and have a cigar, and all the older cousins were allowed to stay and play in the water and have a little bit longer day at the beach while all the babies went home to take a shower, and so that was like the best memory we had. So he always called himself the giver, and he always loved to give gifts and make people happy. I see that in my dad every day. The other day, after a long day at work, a long day at his work, he called to check and see how everything was going. I have just moved and have been without a kitchen for 2 months. So on his way home, he stopped and dropped me off food to go without even asking for it. It's the little things that my Pop-Up did that I see in my dad, which my kids call him Pop-Up now. And it just makes me happy to see that the giver keeps going through my dad. And I'm sure it will through my brothers as well.
When I think of Uncle Joe, I think of that sparkle in his eye, how welcoming he always was to everybody, how sweet, how funny, how much he connected with people. He always made me and my family feel so warm He was always giving of himself, and he was just an all-around great guy. Loved him very much, and just a fabulous person, and we'll miss him dearly. Love you guys.
Hi, good evening. Most of you know me, but I'm Tony Felicia, and I'm here with my wife Susan, and feel very thankful that I'm able to share a few memories tonight about Doug and Mimi, two amazing people. So to Patty and Susan and John and Peter and Jimmy and your significant others and all the children and grandchildren, it's been a really tough couple of months for all of you. And I hope this finds you and your family well and handling the best you can the loss of not just one, but two really amazing parents. I have to sort of start with Rich and Patty because we are forever grateful and fortunate that we became neighbors in the community of Bear Trap and lived just a few houses from each other. This was our introduction to all of your families, children, siblings, spouses, and of course, Doug and Mimi. I truly empathize with your entire family on your recent loss of both parents. Having lost my dad over 10 years ago, I know it doesn't matter what age they were or how sick they might have been. It's an end of so many great times together that are gone forever, but in time will be healed with smiles and laughter for all the unique and wonderful stories and memories that we each have. Well, here are a few that Susan and I would like to share. You simply can't mention the word Doug in a sentence without it having something to do with golf. We played together on weekends at Bear Trap in member guest tournaments with Rich and Jimmy, and we watched PGA events at Marion, Aronimink, and Bethpage together. I regret having not had the opportunity to take Doug to the Masters. Each year when I entered the Master lottery for tickets, I would tell Doug that if I get tickets, we're going to Augusta. There was no bigger golf fan and enthusiastic lover of the game than Dougie. When Doug and I played at Wyncote Country Club in Oxford, PA, we would share some of the most relaxing rounds of golf together. Of course, there was always a side story besides our golf game. We would always stop in the Wyncote Country Club pub for a burger and a beer after golf, and also be served by a pretty young redhead named Paula. For 2+ years, Doug would ask me the same question over and over as we approached the clubhouse on the 18th hole. What's that pretty redhead's name? I say, for the 100th time, Doug, it's Paula. Finally, I smartened up and I placed 3 names on our scorecard: Doug, Tony, and Paula. In the past 2 years, I ran into Paula at my current club, Hartfeld National, where she was the banquet manager, and immediately the first words out of her mouth was, "How's Doug?" She remembered him, and we shared the funny and great memories from Wyncote Country Club. For another 2+ years, I was a member at Hershey Mill Country Club, and Doug was my sponsor. We had a regular foursome with Tom and Lou, Doug and I. Every round of golf started with the 4 of us having lunch together, and then Doug and I would golf and watch Tom and Lou argue their way around the course. What I loved about Doug was his understanding that while good golf or competition was nice, he really knew the important thing were the laughs and the friendship that we enjoyed. And he never lost sight of that. When we played golf on Fridays, we'd stop in the club for a drink, and we would enjoy the big bowls of pretzels and potato chips and nuts that were put out. And then we would laugh like hell because come 4 o'clock, we were really being stared at by the super senior happy hours. They came in and they wanted us out of their seats so they could enjoy their regular tables. When Susan and I moved into our new home almost 8 years ago, Doug and Mimi joined us here for a dinner a couple of times. As you well know, Doug loved all things made from wood. He just enjoyed seeing all the things our builder had done with our new home. So one day I showed Doug a sketch of a workbench I was intending to build in the basement. Well, as you would know, within 2 days, he showed up with his car packed with more tools than were used to build this entire house. I think this is a well-built house, but nothing is more sturdy than the Doug signature workbench. Each day when he would leave, he would give me a to-do list, and these were the things I had to complete before he would come back. At the end, it took us another 2 days to load the tools into the car that he had brought over. I loved seeing the enjoyment he got from a project, and it was again a wonderful memory of time spent together. Finally, a bottle of Canadian Mist has been sitting in our bar with Dougie's name on it. It was always there for whenever he was here. So, to Mimi and our good friend, golf buddy, storyteller, carpenter, and two of the best people I've ever met in my life, we offer to these amazing parents and grandparents, to your families, we raise a drink in their honor, and thank you for sharing Mimi and Doug with us, and our love to all of them and to everyone in your family, from Tony and Susan Felicia. Thank you so much.
Hi guys. I wanted to start with my earliest memories of Douglas C. Miner. My earliest memory was when I was in 5th or 6th grade, and he brought Susan and I on a work trip with him in his station wagon, and we went to the shore, and he left us in the back when he went in for each of his calls, and we did our little girl thing, and then he brought us to lunch at this cute little place that had red and white checkerboard tablecloths, and he let us get whatever we wanted, and he played our music in the car. And so the song of the day was My Cherie Amour from Stevie Wonder. It was a wonderful day. And then my next memory is when he became my linguistics coach. Now, I didn't know what linguistics meant at that time, but he did help me to not say like 20 times in a paragraph and to say yes instead of yay. So he did help me on those lines. And then thirdly, you might not know this, but he did save my life. During a 7th and 8th grade girls basketball game, St. Dorothy's versus St. Pius, we beat St. Pius, and the Wang gang was not happy that we won. So they wanted to fight our team. So the dads all were protecting us and getting a big line over to Rufinex to get us safe. And one of the Wang gang actually reached out, because your dad was trying to protect me, and grabbed him and ripped his coat. But I never got hurt because of him. But overall, I would say my favorite and best memories are always in the kitchen in Dermont Road. I just always felt welcome there, and I felt like family, and it was just, no matter what we were doing, shooting the breeze, playing a game, throwing the ball to boots, whatever it was just, it was my home away from home. And there's a saying that says, people don't always remember what you said to them, but they always remember how you made them feel. And he always made me feel welcomed, and I will carry that in my heart forever. Love you all.
There you go.
Hi guys. Well, if you're wondering about my attire, this is my COVID-19 business casual attire. But I do want to start with my condolences to all of you for the difficult loss of two amazing people over such a short span of time. And couldn't come at any worse. It's never a good time, but it couldn't come at any worse time. And I'm sorry for that. But this message is more about celebration and good memories. So I'll go there now. And I'll start with a picture that Susan had sent to Beth the other day. And it showed Mr. Miner in the kitchen of Dermont Road, and Pat Smith behind him, bent over in laughter at this counter. And Mr. Miner had a devilish grin from ear to ear, and it kind of symbolizes some of the ways I remember him and think of him. And that also reminds me of the house at Dermond Road. In fact, my whole theme is kind of about that, but it reminds me of being in that kitchen with friends, always a lot of beer, and more friends, and Mr. and Mrs. Miner always around in a good way, not hovering over us, but just being part of the celebration. And when we were sitting there in that kitchen with our friends having a few drinks, all was right with the world. It never got any better. It was incredible to be there, all having fun, all good people. And you know how you tune things out, voices, noises, etc. Mr. Miner always had that voice that kind of cut right through that, and you could, the quality, the timbre, the tone of his voice, it just kind of cut through. So you heard whatever he said, also in a good way, no matter what else was going on, and it was almost always incredibly funny. And so that's a memory I always have and will always, of the entire Miner family, but also Mr. and Mrs. Miner together. And then last but not least, I think my favorite memory actually is the day they had the moving party at the Dermond Roadhouse. And I remember Douglas C., Joe Miner, coming up to me saying, hey, how are you? How you doing? Just talking, right? And I turned to him and I said, I'm sad. He said, why? I said, this place feels like home. And he said, it is your home. And that right there tells you all you need to know about him.
So one of my favorite memories of Pop-Pop and Mimi, I'm combining them, lots of memories, is when you'd go over to their house on Dermond Road and you'd pull in the driveway and you'd go in the back door by the kitchen and you would see Mimi either sitting at the kitchen table watching TV, or if she wasn't there, then you'd sneak up the back steps. She'd be in her bedroom watching TV. You'd say hi to Mimi, and then she'd say, go say hi to Pop-Pop, and then you'd go down the hall. He'd either be in the den or the office, and you'd say, Pop-Pop, I'm here, and then he'd say, oh, step into my office, and you'd go say hi to him, and whatever he was doing, whether he was watching TV, or he was on the computer when he used to work on his computer, and then, he'd turn everything off and everyone would go downstairs and you'd sit in the kitchen and, he'd offer you a snack, he'd offer you a drink. He'd always offer you beer, even if you weren't 21, and then he'd remember and then instantly change his mind and offer you a Capri Sun. They always had Capri Suns, Pacific Cooler on deck. And just being able to call them and, say, hey, I have a basketball game, or I have a show this weekend, do you want to come? My mom will pick you guys up and we'll buy you tickets or whatever it be. He was always, both of them were really always so excited to support the grandkids in any way that they could, take pictures and anything. And then over the last couple years, Mimi, when she knew something that was happening in your life, whether it was for me, a show, any type of sporting events for any of our cousins' teams, obviously the Eagles, Ravens, all that fun stuff, she would always be texting. Any updates you would see in the newspaper or on the TV, she'd be texting and, making sure that you knew that she knew that something cool was happening. And it always just made you happy. And it always just kind of made you remember that she was always thinking about us, even though we never really, even if we didn't see her every day. And same thing for Pop-Pop, he would always have a newspaper cutout when you'd come over, or he'd always remember, oh, you did this or you did that, and then you'd tell him the story and he would pretend that he knew exactly what you were talking about. So it's things like that, definitely gonna miss, but we were so lucky to have both of them, and we miss them both, and they raised 5 great kids and so many grandkids, and everyone got to meet their great grandkids that they have so far, and they were always so happy and proud about that. So yeah, we're really lucky. I miss you, Mimi and Pop-Pop.
Okay, Miners. First of all, I have a notebook in front of me because there are so many things that I want to say about your dad and my uncle that I need a cheat sheet, so hence the book. So first let me express my sorrow, my condolences, all that stuff as it relates to your mom and your dad over the last few months, for you guys having to go through this all at the same time. So I can only imagine how hard that is on you guys. And just hope you know how sorry I am. Okay? With that, let me tell you what your dad, my uncle, meant to me. You know, the charisma and personality of your father was unlike I have ever seen. When the cousins would first come together, your dad had the ability to make the awkwardness go away and make everybody comfortable right away. And I was always so excited to see him because he would make me laugh and make me feel comfortable and give me jabs and all that stuff. And just personality and charisma, the natural born salesman for sure. Yet he had this, like all of our uncles, this underlying decency about him that once you got through the laughter and the jokes and all that stuff that Uncle Joe brought to the table, there was this rock of decency that you always felt. And what a combination of a guy to have all of that. And so I wish there was something else I could say as we're all in quarantine, and I wish that we were there with you guys, but know that when the day does happen, when you decide to celebrate your dad's life, we would love to be there, and we will be there. And I can't wait to have a ceremonial cigar shooing the elephants away. So, love you, miners, and I hope to see you soon. Okay.
Hi, John. Hi, Mary Pat, Susan, Jim, Pete, Patty. Just want to let you guys know I'm thinking of you and remembering the so many great and fun times we had with you and your dad and your mom. Your dad and your mom were so very welcoming, and they set the stage for so many great and terrific memories hanging out in your kitchen, the garage, driveway, having beers, shooting hoops, talking sports, or just solving the problems of the world at the time in our lives. When you were at the Miners, you were family. So I'm at my workbench as a memory of your dad. I have a tennis racket, a golf club, some wood putty, and a little beverage, a brown liquor. I think it might have been scotch, maybe whiskey. I think it was scotch. Your dad was Doug, he was Dougie, he was Joe, he was Mr. Miner. He was Mr. Miner to me, and I think that really just said it all. He was the whole package. He was a larger-than-life person. He was very positive, gregarious, supportive. He had a great smile, inclusive of his cigar. Had a great handshake, a little raspy voice. Remember him yelling, "John!" But we're going to miss him. I'm sure you're going to miss him. But we do have these great memories of him when we were younger. And I do have one memory from when I was pretty much younger, of Aronimink Swim Club. So picture this: Doug Miner, Joe Remy, Cliff Edgecombe, Jack Reel walking down the ramp at Aronimink Swim Club, tennis rackets in hand, wearing their dressed whites. I think your dad rocked a headband from time to time. But they'd stroll down the court, jump on court 1 or 2 with the big guys, and I can just remember them having a great time playing, having those friendships. I think John and I might have been on court 6, learning how to play tennis ourselves. But again, just wanted to wish you guys the best during these times, and say cheers to your dad, a great life, and may he rest in peace. John and Mary Pat, love you guys. Take care.
Hello, all you miners. Listen, I want to tell you something I think you already know. That your father was a great athlete, and he won this trophy 3 times, in 82, 83, and 87. And this is harder to win than the U.S. Open. I think you know that. And he was a great athlete, but even better, he was a great man. I want to let you know that I've been around for 90 years, and God has granted me many, many wonderful gifts. And one of the finest he gave me was the friendship of your dad. And I'll always be thankful for that. And I know you are too. And don't forget Mimi. Without Mimi, they were a great couple. God bless you all, and have a great life.
Hey everyone, hope all is well and staying safe during these crazy times we're in right now. So when I got the text from Aunt Patty about a story or a memory about Pop-Up, a few specific things popped in my head right away. I'm sure this one is going to be used in the video, but one of my favorite stories about Pop-Up was when we were down the shore renting a house in Seattle. As you know, Mimi and Pop-Up always took the main bedroom on the first floor where the kitchen was. One night, me, Jeffrey, and Sam were sitting there watching TV, doing no harm, doing nothing bad, probably 11 o'clock at night with all the lights out. Next thing you know, we hear Mimi and Pop-Up's door open, and Pop-Up comes out in a white undershirt and white whitey tighties. And he just starts walking towards us, and Sam whispers, "Stay quiet. Dinosaurs can't see in the dark." And we start laughing, hysterically giggling, and he just looks and just turns around and goes right back into the room. So that was the one that specifically stuck out to me. Other thing I think would be just memories of going to their house in Drexel Hill and just going in that kitchen and seeing Pop-Up sitting on that chair right by the front door with his feet up, always welcoming guests. Whether you were family, friends, a random person, he was always welcoming and loved having people in his house and being the host and grabbing you a drink and telling a story, whatever it was. So the last one that really sticks out to me is when Tess was younger. And he was asking about the animal noises, and they were saying, talking about a cow, and he starts screaming moo right in front of her face. That was something that was so funny and always reminds me of Pop-Up, and seeing how old Tess is now and thinking back to those times is great. So like I said, hope all is well. Love everyone. Talk to you soon.
Uncle Joe was the original photo bomber. He succeeded in getting in every photo taken at Mom and Dad's 25th anniversary party in Springfield many years ago. We looked at the pictures again last year when we were celebrating my dad, and he was indeed in every single photo. Uncle Joe was always so funny and so fun to be around, and his big heart was just as big as his big laugh and his great sense of humor. He would always go the extra mile to lend a kind word or to help, give you a ride anywhere. Many happy times. And he and Aunt Mimi were very special and big part of my life, and I am grateful for that. We'll miss him. I know he's with his beloved Mimi, and love them both.
This is Cass giving you a funny story about Dougie. Of course, Joe has always been Dougie to me. Mimi and Joe used to have great parties. Everyone went, everybody had a good time. But when Joe had enough of it, he would take off his sport shirt and start collecting beer bottles and beer cans. Then when he really had enough, he would take off his undershirt. Now, this is a vision. Dougie, with the green plastic bag, collecting bar glasses, beer cans, beer bottles, everything. It was really quite a sight to see. Anyway, We miss both of them so much, and we love them dearly. I hope you can get this. Hope it works for you. Anyway, we miss them both. We love them both. God bless you.
I have so many wonderful memories of Pop-Pop. I think just sometimes I would drive with just him and Mimi to Bethany if my family wouldn't come, and I would want to be with all my cousins. So I had fond memories of just being in the car with them for 3 hours and just hearing them, you know, converse back and forth. It was always just so funny. But I think my favorite memory is one that is more recent. It was when Mimi was in the quadrangle and Susan brought Pop-Pop there, and my family was there as well. And it was the saddest but also the sweetest moment that I had seen from them in a while, obviously, with everything that was going on. But it was so sweet, you know. Pop-Pop didn't obviously fully understand what was going on, why Mimi was there. He kept, every couple minutes, he kept checking and asking if she was okay, why she was here, when she was getting out. Just, you could tell that the roles were reversed at that point for the first time in a long time, and he was genuinely worried, and there was so much love in every one of his questions, and it was very sweet. And then all of a sudden he just stood up and walked over to her to hug her and kiss her on the head. It was so sweet, and I'm so grateful to have been there to see it. It was probably one of my fondest memories, even though it was a strange time, and when both of them weren't really themselves at that point, but you could see that there was still, you know, so much love there, and I love them and I miss them so much, and I think about that all the time.
So, would love to share a few recollections of Uncle Joe and Aunt Mimi. It's been a while since I saw them both, but I remember some very early memories, and actually some of my earliest memories of being on the Jersey Shore involved both Mimi and Joe. I think Uncle Joe was the first time I ever smelled a cigar was because of Uncle Joe. And I think the first time I ever went to the sub shop in Avalon to get a hoagie, or probably cheesesteak, was with Uncle Joe. And for some reason I remember Aunt Mimi buying me a pack of baseball cards, and we got back to the house in Avalon, and we opened them up, and I didn't know anything about any of the players, but she did, and she said, "Oh, that sucks, they're all Mariners." This was back in the 80s, and the Mariners were a bad team. And I remember the evenings that Joe and Mimi and my mom and dad would share together, laughing, more cigar smoke, big loud voices from Joe at least. And I remember what great friends Mimi and Joe were with my mom and dad. And I haven't seen Mimi and Joe for a long time, so my memories are really of when they were strong, young people with great kids, and I'd love to see you all again very soon.
Hello everyone. I wanted to say a few quick words about our buddy Doug.
Hello Miners. We miss our buddy Dougie. I made a couple notes here. What can I say about my buddy Doug? He was the best. Only great memories being with him. Going all the way back to intramural basketball at St. Dot's. He was not the best ref. Sitting around the kitchen table in Drexel Hill, some of the great memories I believe we all share there. He always had a smile for me, great laughs, and a cold vitamin B, Budweiser, from the fridge in the garage. Down the shore, me sharing a room and sleeping in the bunk beds with his buddy Don. Doug saying that I went to bed sober and I woke up drunk from breathing the same air as Don. That was absolutely hysterical. Fond memories on the links. Even the day when he almost killed me with his 7-iron. When the head of the club, which he made, came off and whizzed by my ear. He was an all-timer. We will all miss him, but I know he's having a great time upstairs. We love you all.
So one of my oldest memories of Dougie is was always entering the back door at their house on Durmont Road and seeing Dougie there with a big fat cigar and Mimi with her Miller, and always welcoming me into the house, anyone actually. And Dougie never short of busting your chops. But a more recent happy memory was also at John's 40th birthday party. We had a dinner here at the house, and after dinner we actually came into this very room, and we all lit up cigars. And he just thought it was he got the biggest kick out of it, and just had one of the best times. It's one night I'll never forget. I'm glad we were able to have it with him here. Oh, and this, well, I'd be remiss if I didn't think this OCD arrangement wasn't somehow attributed to Big Doug. But one of our favorite memories of Doug and gifts from Doug were these swings, which came from an oak tree in your backyard that Doug was very proud to have made. So Doug will always be remembered in our home. Cheers to Doug.
Cheers.
Doug Miner. Doug was a friend. Doug was a man's man. Whenever I walked into a room, whether it was a party, a family function, even a men's grill, and saw Doug, I smiled. Because I knew that inevitably I was going to walk over and we were going to have a chat, and he was going to make me laugh. So, Doug, Joe, King of the Clamps, I love you, I miss you, and I'll see you on the back nine. Shalansha, my friend.
Hi guys, Uncle Dick here. Just wanted to share a couple thoughts about Joe. I've known him a long time, probably longer than anyone who's going to see this video. Can't tell you exactly when I met him, but obviously it was when your mom brought him home. But I wasn't paying a lot of attention to the guys my sisters were dating at that point in my life. But one thing I do remember is a guy who was very kind and a lot of fun, and I remember that as him all my life. He loved to be outside, he loved his kayaking, he loved his tennis, he loved his photography, and he certainly loved his golf, which I played a lot of golf with him, and found myself, or certainly Joe, in conditions just like this. Of course, the alternative was he could have been in the woods. He seemed to spend a lot of time there as well. We had good times at your home, Durmont Road, at your grandparents' apartment, at the shore, almost every place we were. I will miss him. He was a great friend. He loved Mimi. He loved each and every one of you, his kids, his grandchildren. He was so proud of you. I'll miss him forever, and a toast to Joe. All the best.
My favorite thing about Papa would have to be him saying, "Step into my office." Say, "Step into my office," you walk over, you come in from the beach, and he was always there. And that was probably one of the best summers of my life, was spending that time with him and Mimi. And learning the tricks and the traits of Doug Miner.
Hello Miners, it's your cousin Matt, and just wanted to send you guys a quick message, tell you I'm thinking about you. I guess it's safe to say the Miner family has had a tough 2020 so far. That said, I'm really thankful that I got to see all of you a couple months ago to celebrate Mimi's life. I'm so sorry to hear about Joe, my uncle, who I loved, and unfortunately, while I haven't seen him in a long time, I've got great memories growing up. He was always just in such a great mood, life of the party, just such a kind guy. I loved playing golf with Uncle Joe, and I don't know, maybe somebody will come across it. We used to have a bet every time we played, and We'd have the same dollar bill that would go back and forth, and we'd sign it for each other, and probably went back and forth at least half a dozen times over the years. And I can't find it, so I'm wondering if he may have won at last. But I loved playing golf with him. I loved how he would just relish giving his brother-in-law, my dad, Uncle Dick, a hard time whenever he could. And I'm going to miss him, and I know you guys are too. And I don't know when it'll be, but I know we'll get to be together again sometime, and I look forward to it. Be well, everybody.
Hello, Miner family. Fran and I just wanted to send our thoughts and prayers to all of you. Incredibly difficult time, and we just hope that time is a healer and that soon your sadness transitions to the wonderful memories of your mom and your dad and all the times you had together and positive influence they had on you and to so many others like us. One particular influence I think of, particularly for your dad, is him teaching me how not to say like. Apparently I said like in where it didn't belong all the time because he spent a lot of time correcting me. No, make me like. He would just interrupt me and come back. But to this day, when I talk to someone, adult, child, whoever, who says like all the time, I think of him. And I say, either, if the person is adult, it's unfortunate that person didn't have the influence of someone like Mr. Miner. Or as a young person, I say, I hope someone does influence this young person in the way your dad taught me not to say like. So I think of him often and thank him for that. I would just like to add, Peter and I talked about this a little bit on Mother's Day. And, it's a very tough time, very sad. But, I think at least the way I look at it is that, the silver lining is that your mom and dad are back together in heaven, reunited, no suffering. And they're looking down on all of you, proud as could be, about the beautiful family they've created and knowing that you will carry on their legacy with your families.
Pete, Patty, Jim, John, and Susan, thank you for sharing your parents with us for the past 25 years. Pat and I are certainly better people for it.
Hi, everyone. I was very sorry to hear about your dad, always Mr. Miner to me, and I'm very sorry that we can't be together to celebrate his life. I feel very fortunate to have been your neighbor for so many years, and of course, Mr. Miner was a huge part of that. I have so many memories of him in the yard, in the driveway, reffing games at St. Dot's, walks in the woods, yelling for John, yelling at John, golfing, and of course, holding court at the kitchen table. Mr. Miner's whistle was distinctive, having an immediate effect on kids and dogs alike. In short, he was always there. Mr. Miner was a great husband, a great father, a terrific neighbor, and a friend to everyone. He will be missed. I love you guys and hope to see you soon.
My favorite memory of Pop is definitely around his love of kayaking. There's two stories that are some of my favorites. The first one is when he took me and my cousin Sam, which everyone knows Sam, to a state park right by our house in Delaware. And after like a couple hours of kayaking, Sam and I were famished because we were 12. And we stopped at a Wawa on the way back. And he's like, just waiting here, like in a very gruff, like hurried tone. We're like, oh, okay. And like, and then he walks back out with a thing of beef stew and then takes us on home. And we're like, what? We're hungry too. Like, what's going on? And then we get back and we're like, oh, we're just supposed to eat here. And so still to this day, we talk about the beef stew story. It's just, he's like, we had food at home. Why not eat it there? And I want a beef stew. It's just classic to this day. Every time I make beef stew, I think of that. And then my second favorite story is also around kayaking with Pop and Sam. He had him in this bright blue kayak. He took us to the beach, took us ocean kayaking in the beach in New Jersey. And he was afraid of the kayak floating away. So he tied a string or like a clip between the life vest and that you would wear and a kayak, so it wouldn't get floated away or taken in the surf. And and so then Sam and I both fell off it numerous times because we were literally floating in the waves and like catching waves and coming back in. And it got caught around Sam's neck a couple times, got on my feet a couple times, and he was like, oh, this is probably a bad idea. So Sam and I started unhooking it the entire time, and like, it's just these two stories just constantly remind me of like my now love of kayaking and love of nature is, I think, instilled because of him. And it's been awesome to not like carry on that tradition, but really just understand the root of it even more now, trying to help like remember great stories of Pop. Yeah.
Hi, Miner family. Hope you're doing well.
We're here during happy hour to say hello to all of you and to honor Joe, and happy hour seems to be the right time to do that. My mom shared some memories with me in the last month or so, and I thought I would quick share them with you. Real simple things, them walking to the Narberth playground together, and I love the thought of them playing together when they were little. And also about on my parents' wedding day was when Joe told Ganny and Pop that he was leaving for Korea, so that was big news. One of my other favorites is the family photo. I don't know if you can see this in here, but when they took this photo, apparently your dad was away, maybe in Korea, and so someone stood in for him in that photo, and then they pasted his picture over it to get the family photo. So one of you probably knows the story on who that mystery person is behind them. And then I guess Tim and I's memory of coming to Joe and Mimi's for Thanksgiving, and we
Drinking too many stingers.
We kind of overstayed our welcome and drank you guys out of beer. But that night, your dad shared some really nice memories with me about my dad from before he had his accident, and I always cherish that. So, golf. Do you have any?
No.
Okay. All right, so cheers to Joe.
Canadian whiskey and
So-
with a splash of
So
water.
we didn't have any Canadian Mist, so we found a airplane bottle of Canadian Club dated 1964, which is older than some of you watching this probably. And thought this was an appropriate time to break it out. So cheers to Joe, to his larger-than-life personality, to the family he raised, to the legacy he left, and to all of you who love him so much. Cheers to Joe. Love you guys.
Marianne!
Good evening, Miner family. I was asked to say a few words about Joe Miner. 30 years ago, my brother Pat asked me to play golf with himself and his father-in-law, Doug Joe Miner. And within a couple minutes of meeting him, I realized what a very good person he was. He made you feel welcomed. He made you feel a part of the group. He made you feel like you belonged. I always got a kick out of that he always used the word pop. On certain holes, he was getting a pop. And then when we got done, we'd probably have a couple pops. And once we did get done, it was always a good conversation with a great, great guy. He will sorely be missed. I know by me and all my family. We'll miss you, Joe.
All right, so I am not going to choose the story that everybody probably thinks, which is the story of Pop not being able to see in the dark because he was a dinosaur. Instead, I think my favorite story about Pop is at Mary Pat's surprise party. John had everybody there beforehand, and he walked her in completely blindfolded. Dead silent room, 150 plus people, and all you heard was Pop scream, "Ha! He's got her blindfolded!" And the entire room started laughing hysterically and more or less ruined the surprise, but just one of my favorite moments of his happiness I've ever had. Go ahead.
Okay, my favorite story is when back at the Drexel Hill house, back up in his den when he had the VHS player and the old Disney DVDs. We were watching, I think it was Aladdin at the time, and he was sleeping in his recliner, and Jake and I were watching the movie, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he got up, took the VHS out of the VHS player, and then just walked out of the room, and Jake and I sat on the floor. And then that was it, and that was the end of the night. We went to bed. And it was a lot of fun. That's what I remember of Pop Pop.
My favorite story of Pop Pop was when we were at the Sea Isle house. Everyone was just hanging out, and he had a really bright blue shirt on. Everyone was making fun of him for it. They were like, "That's a terrible shirt, Pop Pop." And I said, "Pop Pop, that's a great shirt. It's a really nice shirt." And he said, "Thank you, Sonny boy." And it was really funny.
It was a good one. It was a good one.
All right, well, we hope we did this right, but we love you. Sorry we were the last video.
Love you.
Hey miners, how's everybody doing? Really, really sorry about your dad. And especially for being so close to your mom's death. It's really hard. But what a great guy your dad was. We have many, many, many memories of your dad. Ed and I moved in across the street from them back in 1985, so we've known your parents for a very long time, and they were a very big part of our lives. A lot of memories I have of your dad. He and I used to go hunting for I think there were only 3 deer in the backyard. We saw the same 3 deer almost every year for a period of maybe 6 or 7 years. But we'd always go looking for them. He could spot them well before me, but that was one of our fond memories together. And of course, all the beers that we had at the kitchen table with him and Marianne. But good times. Your father taught me a lot about golf too, and what to do, what not to do. So lots of memories there. A couple funny things I didn't even realize for the first couple years that we lived there on Dermont is that your dad's real name was Doug. Yeah, didn't know that, and always thought he worked for Fuller Brush as opposed to Fulton Brush. So yeah, it took me a while to figure that out. But anyway, we just want to wish you guys the best and our condolences to everyone. Okay, take care.
I would say my best memory is, it's not one specific memory, but it's when we would all go to Hawkers with Pop-Pop after dinner. We would have a great day. We'd be either, going to the beach or golfing or doing some sort of outdoor activity. We'd have dinner together, and then we'd all look forward to going to the local ice cream place down in Bethany, or Ocean View, I should say. It was called Hawkers with Pop-Up. I'm sure Katie, Jack, Mass and Abby all have similar great memories, and it's just probably my favorite. It was just amazing being all together, and I really miss it, and I miss Pop-Pop, and that's probably my single best memory.
Hi everyone.
Hi everyone. How you doing?
Is everybody there? Susan, Jimmy, Patty, Peter, and John. I do have a very old recollection of when I first met your mom and dad. It was Drexel Hill, Labor Day weekend, and there was the block party, I guess it was called, and we were on our way up the street. We didn't meet anybody yet, and we saw your mom and dad first and introduced ourselves, and I guess we told them that Denny was a doctor, and pretty soon after that they asked if Denny could take a look at Boots because Boots wasn't feeling well. And he had no idea what to do.
After that, I became known as Dr. Crop, the veterinarian in the neighborhood. But I've always remembered Joe as a true gentleman, and I recently referred to him as a man for all seasons. just because of his different expertise. For example, his craftsmanship, Susan can attest to that, his ability to build things from scratch, and it's just the way about him socially, that he dealt with our family nicely and treated the kids wonderfully, and as well as us. He was just a great guy, and I can remember the days. Well, another great passion of his was golf, of course, and he was truly a very dedicated man to that game, as well as he was to tennis. But I guess golf became more of a passion for him later in life, and he showed me some pointers, which unfortunately didn't improve my game whatsoever. I don't think anything would, but he was a great guy to play golf with. I can remember he and I and Sam Mendocino going out on Concord and playing and really enjoying ourselves. But truly a great man. I always remember Joe as a very kind, caring, social, and wonderful man. I'll never forget him.
We'll tell you that we both loved him, and we loved your mom too.
As well.
They introduced us to Drexel Hill, all their friends, and everyone on the street, and it's because of them that we had such a great time there. So hang in there, kids. You were really lucky. Your parents were wonderful.
They sure were. They sure were.
Talk to you soon.
Take care. Bye.
Da 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 da. Uncle Joe, one of a kind, no question about it. One of my all-time favorites. The two things I remember best about Dougie Miner was, first of all, did anyone like to give you directions more than him? Who was more upset when MapQuest was invented than Joe Miner? There's no way anyone enjoyed giving you directions more than him. He could tell you 16 ways how to get somewhere. He would always start with, well, how are you going to get there? Let me walk you through it. The second thing, and the more important thing for me, was I loved playing golf with Uncle Joe. He was so generous with me. The amount of times he took me to Concord Country Club, the amount of times we got to play together was awesome. And he loved to bet. Especially loved to play the side game of, hey, you want to play how many putts? How many putts? How about that? You want to play how many putts? Fewest putts. Let's go. Joe, I'm going to miss you. You're a good man.
And a toast to Doug. We love you, Miners. Doug, what a legend. And just the best photo bomber, the original photo bomber, and our favorite kitchen to always stop in and love being always with the Miners. And with Doug and Mimi, miss you. Love you all. Cheers. Cheers.
Da 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 da
da da da.
I miss my old man tonight.